Hello. Hope all you people in London, Wales, everybody else, Scotland, Ireland, Norway, Finland, Greenland, Iceland, Turkey, Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, Europe, Jerusalem, Israel, Pakistan, North America, South America, Brazil, the Amazon, especially the Maui tribe, keeping the rainforest preserved for years to come. As you know, that is what Mother Nature's main goal is keeping that area secret, preserved for years to come, for the future of all this planet. There are things there in that area of wildlife that cannot be damaged or hurt. It's scientifically unsound. There are plants there that could help research the cure for all cancer. Things that need to be left alone, especially preserved for years to come. God bless them. Carrying on, I thought I'd continue with Fergie Confidential, the real story. Reading General Omar Bradley here, World War II veteran. But I attended St. James Catholic Church with here in ElizabethTown, Kentucky. Look at that. That's right. Alrighty. Carrying on. Nothing to deter her, she was totally besotted. Down. She was totally besotted and in love with Patty McNeely. And the highly placed royal sauce, she was never free with her favorites. McNeely teased her good naturally about her weight, but I also coached her on herself until the tail of her homemade Davy Crockett hat flying behind. She was more than a match for many of the men on the most demanding black runs. She was a very competent skier, fast and fearless. No, I don't think so. No. She was more than a match for many of the men on the most demanding black runs. She was a very competent skier, fast and fearless. Coming to Diane's teenage friend in those days, she tended to ski outside her limit, which is when the adrenaline starts running. It gives you a high, which some people might find orgasmic. Sarah called McKinley a toad after Mr. Toad and Kenneth Graham's classic The Wind in the Willows. How many of you read that story? It gave him a sweater with a toad motif on the front as a present. Unlike his namesake, McNeely had no need to boast about his accomplishments. He bought the chalet in the 70s when he was climbing up in the world of motor racing. Continued Diane's tense friend. He had people like Jackie Stewart, a good friend to stay. He spent his money discreetly. He wasn't at all flamboyant, but some of the people in Verbier then belonged to a very lush, tuxedo world. Patty is a great talker and an admiring friend, told Tatler. When the magazine decided to investigate the McNeely phenomenon, he really can charm the hind legs of a donkey. Dad Llewellyn begged to differ. His language is very limited. He said he called everybody wanker. This was probably justified considering some of the people who tried to hang on to McNeely's coattails. His favorite watering hole was the Farm Club, an expensive dog. Not very upmarket disco where King Tub held a court in the reserved alcove at a wooden table. Latin was bold, bottles of Russian vodka. Acceptance into the inner circle was by invitation only. The social cachet is carried in the alpha and enclave of Slowdom was enormous. Well-endowed young Charlotte girls gravitated towards McNally's table, either for some of the match to rub off on them. Some of the prettiest, most personal girls were invited back to the castle, as McNally's place was called, for a meal or party. Gate crashes and drug pushes were told bluntly to get lost. McNeely was quite a big spender, so he had a hell of a lot of hangers. Auntie content with the recall of one party at the castle. Evidently, drugs both hard and soft had made their appearance on the verbiage in Albertus. Retailed the story of an unsuspecting newcomer who carried a frozen chicken through the customs at Geneva Airport, which, when it was broken open at the shot she was staying in, contained a large quantity of cocaine. Unknown to its owner, the drug addict's playhouse pharmaceutical farm club with a variety of narcotics and stimulants. McNeely was aware of the danger, but it was difficult to avoid. I have a strict house rule that no one has anything to do with. Drugs is allowed to stay within the after newspaper alleged that a high society experience took part in one large part of sex and drugs movies. At Charlotte, the discredited informant convicted drug addict had worked briefly for McNeely in 1991 before he sacked her for obvious reasons. He sued for level 1 snowboarders of one kind. Another were one of the houses of the slums. It was all quite innocent in the 70s, and Diana's tennis rental, old marijuana cigarette might be handed around the Charlotte, but it wasn't regarded as naughty or bad. It was an accepted way of life. In the 80s, the Americans started coming over to work for a few months, and they brought in hard drugs. It was on a visit to the United States after her life had been changed forever that Sarah spoke openly about her personal contact with the drug menace. A lot of my friends have been alcoholics and drug addicts. She said it's important that we all stand together. I think that this is the way to open our eyes to this problem. Jamie Blanford was jailed and twice appeared in court on drug charges. Lulu Black confessed that she had taken all kinds of drugs when she dated Blanford. When Ellen McNeely flirted with attractive newcomer, Sarah had first would storm out in a large rage and burst into tears. She once uncontrollably dumped a huge bucket of ice water over his head to close our door. Gradually, she became adept at shutting out aspirating rivals. I'm serious, she would tell him, drawing herself up 5 feet to 8 inches. I'm Patty's girlfriend, looking for more vantage than sophisticated and skinny type. Black leather trousers and high heels. She made sure the Interpol got the message. She drank vodka, smoked Marlboro cigarettes, and joined in our often waspish conversation until it was dawn, baby. It could be vicious. Sarah became used to a bit of heavy, sharp banter across the table. Said one who took part, it was fast, teasing, and she was no slouch yet. Her exploits added to her popular image as carefree, fun lover, who was like nothing better than to indulge in cream bun fights. A picture taken at the time showed her riding the go-kart miniskirt so short it exposed her underwear. Someone had written across the print, smile if you're wearing clean knickers. Sarah smiled broadly. Contact with some of the more cosmopolitan Americans through McNeely influenced and prepared Sarah for what they later had touted as conclusion that McNeely virtually prepared Fergie for marriage was about to come true in the most spectacular way. In the spring of 1985, Prince Diane had put Sarah's name forward into the Queen as guest Windsor Castle near Royal Ascot, Britain's most fashionable race meeting held at the Queen of Race Course in the third week of June. Prince Andrew could be on leave for his duties as lieutenant with HMS Bras and Linux. Helicopter flight at Portland. The omens were encouraging for the delicate maneuver Diane had planned so carefully. The aptly named slip anchor won the Derby at Epsom on 5th June. The corporate invitation journey arrived at Lavender Gardens on the Queen's behalf from old Aton Lieutenant Colonel Blair Stuart Wilson. When Sarah told McNeely he did not read any particular significance into it, he knew that Diana, now the mother of two young princesses, enjoyed Sarah's company, and if she had any designs on Andrew, she had kept them secret from him during their affair. He even volunteered to drive her. McNeely was like that. Sarah accepted the offer, packed her bags, and he whisked her to the 20 miles along the M4 to Windsor Castle. Among her little ideas seen the crucifixes, Queen Elizabeth II was known to be uncommonly superstitious about the number 13. If there were 13 guests for dinner, she either tried to even the number up, or even that was possible. The two tables were laid in the royal dining room. One for 10, one for 3. 13 never sat down at the same table. As McNeely's car crunched onto the castle's grave or forecourt, neither Sarah sitting beside him, certainly not the Queen, and her really a suspect. God bless the Queen and everybody else. That in precisely 13 months' time, Sarah would walk down the separate easel of Westminster Abbey on the arm of her son, Prince Andrew. Big dealers of the Playboy Prince. My life will change drastically now, Prince Andrew. Jean the Con photographer grew to the stars. Never forgot the evening his friendship with Prince Andrew was sealed. It was long before the arrival of Sarah, and it happened the first time Prince Andrew went to his home at Beaconsfield in Buckinghamshire for dinner. The Filipino American was fast establishing his reputation in London's highly competitive photograph world as a particular fine printer. A detective brought the prince to his photographer's workshop studio in Colorado. God to meet him, and when the formal introductions had been complete, Andrew produced a camera from the bag. He was clutching and discerningly asked me, "Can you show me how to use this?" Nolkin devoted several weeks to showing the prince how to operate his expensive equipment to the best advantage. As a mark of gratitude, he was invited to dinner at Buckingham Palace. When I got home that night, my wife Liz was jumping with beans. Said Nolkin, she wanted to know that it was like, and I said, "Oh, it was fine, a big house, lots of rooms, great dinner." Then we went on holidays, and Liz was telling her about my evening at the palace. She got quite carried away, and I heard her saying, "We plan to have him over the next week." I thought, "Oh, really?" When we got back, I called Prince Andrew up and asked him if he would like to come over for a meal. He said, "Sure, be delighted." Liz got in a quiet state. She got the gardeners and made sure everything was just right. I called him sir, but it was an informal occasion. I realized what a wonderful person he was. He was so easy to entertain. I just can't say enough about how nice he is. The Nolkins home provided the prince with a bar hall to which he could take his new girlfriend safe, in the knowledge that they would respect his confidence and equally important give him an honest opinion on whether or not they might be suitable princess material. We had some very interesting people to dine at the house during our friendship with Prince Andrew. Not going to reveal it. We're holding a birthday party for him there, and the last moment it was switched to the home of one of the other guests. Katie Rabbit, their place happened to be close to Peters Chase, the former British ambassador to the United States, which was the newspapers had to stick out for some reasons. When the reporters saw the royal car go past, they followed it to Kate, and suddenly she was romantically linked with the prince. If it had been for the fluke, Kate would have been a name to be reckoned with. At any shape or form, it amused the prince, but he knew it was his job to deny it, or even the palace press office for that matter. On another occasion, the photographer director invited the prince back to Beaconsfield, only to discover that he hosted a mixture of friends and gathered in honor of his own birthday. A surprise, in which Andrew had helped Liz set up. I had organized a photography session in London for that particular day, and when I had finished, I called Liz, and she said, "Well, why don't you invite him over?" He played along with the game and said, "All right, I'll follow you home." When I got there, this was a whole mob was shouting. We're shouting happy birthday. And Andrew had been a part of the whole bloody thing. As a young man, Andrew smiled. He had the ability to light up any room, to enter even the gloomier inner sanctums of Buckingham Palace. Those closest to the Queen often noted that Her Majesty was miserable or unhappy about something. Andrew had only to appear, and she would cheer up. Even the mention of his name could make her eyes sparkle and her face soften. The Queen's reactions proved that what had long been suspected, that if the monarch were allowed to show favoritism as a mother, Andrew was certainly the pet amongst her 4 children. When the pilot princess sailed for the South Atlantic in HMS Invincible on the 5th April 1982, 3 days after General Leopold Scutari, Argentina's forces invaded the Falkland Islands, Her Majesty found herself confronted by the very real prospect that he might be amongst the casualties of war. Prince Andrew is in the Navy, and I'm sure he still fulfill whatever duty he is given. She said with outward calm. Inside, she was so fearful as any mother with a son in a 40-ship convoy steaming to an uncertain future. Invincible was crowned with Harrier jump jets and Sea King helicopters, one of which Prince Andrew was then just 22. He was setting off in a mission that his brother Charles, 12 years his senior, would never have to experience. During his absence, his sister-in-law, the Princess of Wales, would give birth to her first child. Princess William and the Queen herself would receive the Pope at Buckingham Palace. Palace and entertained Presidents Reagan at Windsor Castle. 400 of those weeks were filled with a heady mixture of excitement and terror. God bless. There were no more dangerous trials in the entire conflict than that which Andrew was instructed to perform, and it was to be Beatles' suggestion that he might be given preferable treatment, and his helicopter was one of the Sea King's used as a escort to track enemy fire. Death in the shape of French-made Escort missiles came scurrying over at the horizontal supersonic speeds and headed straight for the Sea Kings. The idea is that the excellent comes in low over the waves and then it's supposed to go above a height 27 feet. He recalled when the missile is coming at you, you rise quickly above 27 feet and it flies harmlessly underneath. In third, I was frightened, absolutely. Everybody was frightened. Almost certain, I think, to a large degree. If you're not frightened, then you make a mistake. It was never lonely than during the moments when you are lying down on the deck with a missile flying around. You are on your own. He witnessed the damage an ex-Wilson could inflict when he saw from his helicopter the sinking of the supply ship Atlantic Columbia. A calamity made even more terrible because he knew that missiles was intended on his own ship. It was horrific. At the time I saw a 4.5 shot come quick close to us. I saw my ship Invincible firing her missile. The Princess Sea King rescued 3 of the survivors, but many were killed in the awful ensuing moment. In all, 255 Britons died in the conflict, and 777 were wounded. So when someone had said to the prince following the surrender of the Argentine forces, bet you wouldn't have missed the experience for the world, he fixed the questionnaire with his teary eye and responded, I would have avoided it if I could. So would any sane man. Then he expanded. I think when I first came out, people were asking, would I actually stay here until the end? I'm jolly glad I stayed here. I'm jolly glad I came here. I've learned things about myself that I never would have learned anywhere else. There were no favors for me on board because I was a prince. My life will change drastically now. If it has been his parents' desire that one of the changes in Prince Andrew would be an end to his obsession for the actress Kustark, then they were to be disappointed. No sooner had he returned from the Falklands as a nation here, clutching a rose between his teeth in a gesture of understandable bravado. As he strode from his ship, then he whisked cool off to less jostly oaks. The holiday home was Aunt Prince Margaret on the Caribbean island of Mustique. The prince and the actress traveled as Mr. and Mrs. Cambridge and looked according a fellow passenger for all the world like a couple on their honeymoon. For Andrew, however, the holiday did not turn out to be a happy one. Islanders used to be entertaining the royals. Even the Queen and Prince Philip had visited less just oaks, said that he seemed irritable and ill at ease throughout. I went up to the house to cook one day when Miss Flew, who always prepared the meals, was unwell. Reported a helpful mystique, and I told my husband later that I was worried for the prince. He looked through, he had been crying. His eyes were all puffy and red, and he said sorry to me later for not finishing his meal. He explained that he had not been eating or sleeping very well. I was not surprised. He looked like a man who was wrestling with a great problem rather than a hero who was enjoying the victory who had all we had all heard about. Grappling with a problem he certainly was. At night, Andrew sat alone for hours in Princess Margaret's gazebo, looking across the waters at Elizabeth's Bay. As part of the maturing process which had begun in far colder waters with Exodus whistling past his aircraft, the prince realized they had into what his father bluntly told him was hopelessly ill-suited relationship. The secret which Andrew had taken to Falklands was the depths of his total obsession with the muted actress 2 years his senior, whom he had been known for just a few months. Their meeting had been arranged by Reese Burns after Andrew had been told that another girl he wanted to date was unavailable on a particular evening. At 16, that girl's mother thought she was too young to go out and paint the town red. Even whether Prince Andrew's disappointment was conveyed to Reese by her live-in lover, Charlie Young, Andrew's Gordonstone, comrade in arms, Reese remembered a rather nice girl who lived around the corner who doesn't seem to go out much. Custars, however, was free that evening and accompanied the party on their trip to Trump. The discotheque, favored by film and rock stars in St. James' basement, in sharp contrast to Annabelle's where royals were more comfortably rubbing shoulders with high society from the very first evenings together. Andrew was besotted with coup. His friends said he had bombarded her with telephone calls and love notes, even during the Falklands conflict, using his precious private moments to write long love letters to her. Blinded by love for the first time, he would not listen to early warnings that her career ruled her out as a possible wife. She became a frequent guest in his rooms at Buckingham Palace, and at one stage Andrew even planned to take his cottage in the little Boltons in South Kensington coup for what he most to the concern of his parents and the courtiers was keen to regard as trial marriage. Andrew had always had greater freedom than his elder brothers to always won women at Buckingham Palace, even as a small boy by the Queen. Had allowed him to play in her private office as she worked on her red boxes, born 10 years after his sisters Princess Anne and 12 years after Charles. He was an isolated child until the arrival of Prince Edward 4 years later. The Queen had completed more than 4,800 engagements in the first 10 years of marriage. Following her coronation in 1958, she could not allow herself to become pregnant. In addition to inheriting all her father's responsibilities at home, she traveled abroad as no monarch before her had, visiting 28 countries. It had been no family into which to introduce new babies, and even her son and daughter regarded her as absentee parent, and when she returned from one extensive tour, Prince Charles greeted his mother by shaking her hand, a gesture which would have given any psychiatrist a field day. The royal duties had taken their toll on the marriage of the Queen and Prince Philip. The Duke of Edinburgh became more and more prickly and traveling extensively while his wife, even when he was at home, preferring dining out in Mayfair, and so on to estimate diners in the private suites at Buckingham Palace. 1956, he traveled abroad to open the Olympic Games in Melbourne and stayed away for 5 months, during which he toured America, the Falklands, and Antarctica. Back home, Her Majesty even had to suffer the slings and arrows of an outrageous American columnist who claimed that their marriage had run into particular difficulties as a result. Duke's friendship with a woman he had met at a party matters were not held. When the Duke's friend and companion, Australian private secretary Michael Parker, found himself obliged to resign when it was discovered that his wife was suing her absent husband for divorce on the grounds of his adultery. By the end of the 50s, it was clear that the best way to cement this family was to extend it. The Queen and her prince duty obligated on 7 August 1959. Buckingham Palace announced that the sovereign was pregnant. A line of several hundred cars crawled past the gates of Balmoral Castle, where the Queen had just begun her annual Scottish holiday. With Prince Philip, thousands more tourists thronged the streets of Balmoral Village, 10 miles away, hoping for a glimpse of the royal mother-to-be. Dr. George Proctor Milton, doctor to the Royal Household at Baltimore, paid a routine call on his Thurston patient and pronounced that all was well. At 2:30 p.m. on Friday, February 1960, the Queen gave birth to Andrew Albert Princeton Edward, the first child born to reigning British monarch since Victoria had Princess Beatrice in 1857. The delivery took place in Belgian suite on the ground floor of Buckingham Palace, overlooking the gardens. The brown-haired, blue-eyed baby weighed 7 pounds 3 ounces. First news of the safe delivery was telephoned to the Prime Minister, Sir Harold Maxim, at 10 Downing Street, and he related to the House of Commons, which was about to rise for the weekend recess. So a motion for law addresses of congratulations deferred until the Monday. An early caller at Buckingham Palace was at the Westminster Register. Mr. William Prince, who took with him the red cloth-covered Register of Births for Westminster South. Prince Philip approved the entry. Miss Prince signed it before issuing the proud father with 2 forms, an EC-58, and with the parents to put their baby on the list of a National Health Service doctor for 3 medical attention, the RG-54B, which ensured that the new arrival got the welfare food, cheap milk, and vitamins to which he was entitled. As any other infant in the land, Prince Andrew's number in the register was 194 and followed that one of Lawrence Farrell. His father was a builder's Labrador. Londoners were notified of the birth in the traditional long manner. A 41-gun salute was fired in Hyde Park by the King's Troops Royal Horse Artillery, another at the Tower of London by the Honourable Artillery Company in the presence of the beef eaters. The prince, who was to play such a large part in Sarah's life, was subsequently baptized in a 30-minute ceremony at the palace by Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Fisher, when he asked whose names was the child. It was Princess Alexandra. One of his five sponsors supplied his names. The first 2 of his Christian names came from his grandfathers, Prince Andrew of Greece and Prince Albert, later King George. The third and fourth were derived from his great-great-great-grandfather, King Christian of Denmark, an ancestor the Queen and Prince Philip had in common, and his great-great-grandfather, King Edward. After the ceremony, during which he was baptizing with water from the River Jordan, the 7-week-old prince, wearing a robe of Honiton lace ordered by Queen Victoria for her children, was passed back to Princess Alexandra, whose duly handed him to his nurse, Miss Mabel Anderson. To the surprise of many, no official photographs was taken. The prince was not seen in public for the first 16 months of his life, percepting a rumor that there might be something wrong with the Queen's new baby. In a bid to counter the gossip, his second nurse sister, Helen Rowe, gave regular progress reports describing the infant no one was allowed to see as a simply wonderful in every respect. The Queen stayed firm in her resolve to shield her new son from public glare, allowing her subjects a glimpse of him on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. After the trooping the color ceremony in June 1961, even when he had reached the age of 6, he was being smuggled to and from a private gymnasium for physical exercise and to Army sports ground, where he had learned the rules of cricket and football on conditions of grave secrecy. The arrival of Prince Andrew in the swinging 60s signaled the promise of new happiness, not only for the Queen, but also for her sister. On 26 February, the Queen's mother announced the betrothal of Princess Margaret to the photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones. News of the princess's love came as a pleasant surprise to a nation which had virtually resigned itself to accepting that she would never marry, following the termination forced upon her as her amazing romance with the divorced group Captain Peter Townsend. The Queen doted on her new son. She looked forward to days which Mabel Mamba Anderson took off spending hours with her infant in nursery. Andrew said that it was her mother, not his nanny, who taught him to read and how to add up. His early education was officially in the hands of Miss Catherine Peebles. Known as Mipsy to the royal children, many shared a palace room with several other young people. He became the class monitor as his learning progress accelerated rapidly. His parents decided to send him not to Sheen, where Princess Charles had been, but to Heatherdown, a prep school conveniently close to Windsor. The Queen and Prince Philip learned from the mistakes they had been made with Charles and Anne. Andrew did not have to endure being put on show for thousands of payouts. Eyes to gaze upon, instead he enjoyed a relative freedom during his first years. During in the spotlight had meant that Charles and Anne had been house trained virtually from birth, but the same could not have never be said of Andrew, who showed up all the hallmarks of being spoiled from a very, very early age, just as he was the apple of his mother's eye. He was easily the least popular royal child. The servants at Buckingham Palace had ever seen, they grew tired of his tantrums and walked and talked of him below stairs at the one of the pattern. He showed respect for no one, enjoyed being just as served, and learned to adopt a conciliating tone with those who lived. Livelihood knew, depending on his parents' good grace, he tied together the shoelaces of Harlan's guardsman drove his pedal car at his mother's pet quarters and poured bubble bath into the swimming pool at Windsor Castle. He frequently pushed the staff too far, and when one footman snapped and delivered a blow which sent the young prince across a room, and the queen accepted that he got no more than he deserved, and to Andrew Sharnigan no punishment was meted out to his Sicilian. Even the crew of the royal yacht Britannia were not exempt from his bad behavior. On one occasion, when he was permitted to light the rockets which the vessels traditionally fired as it carried the royal family past the Queen's mother's cottage home, the castle of May set them off in rapid succession. Instead of starting a gentle fireworks display, he made it appear as if Britannia were a battleship under attack, and no one, least of all the Queen Mother, was amused. From an early age, therefore, Prince Andrew enjoyed all the privileges and pleasures of being a member of the Britain's first family without having to experience any of the drawbacks. He was not required to suffer the early discipline which had been imposed on the elder brothers, and the result was to show it in later behavior, when even his doting mother acknowledged that Andrew's angry moods were a problem. During Christmas holiday at Sandringham, he was often out of control to the point of recklessness, and other members of the royal family, which initially regarded him as a high spirit, got around to conclude he was something of pain. Prince Charles had always been taught never so for such behavior, would always bring instant rebuke from his father. Not so. Andrew knew perfectly well that tearful eyes and powerful lips usually got him on his own way. His truculent manner did, however, earn him a few admirers, not least from some of the girls who moved in royal circles. During their stays at Sandringham over the New Year's period, Andrew and Edward would go to Park House to swim in the pools and Earl Spence had built there. One of Andrew's poolside admirers were Lady Diana Spencer, with whom he also played hide and seek in quarters at Sandringham. The late Lord Spencer saw that she was much smitten by Chunky's the Windsor boys. At that stage, she would show no interest to his elder brother. Prince Charles, who was so much older, more interested in her sister Sarah, Diane's grandmother Ruth. Lady Fairmore encouraged Diane to get to know Andrew better. Even at that early stage, her ladyship harbored the ambition that when Andrew became the Duke of York, Diane would be his Duchess. In anticipation of such a great day, Diane became known to her young friends, who knew that she had kept his photograph in lock as Duchess. One New Year's Eve, Andrew plucked up the courage and kissed her under the mistletoe. A problem arose when it was time for 8-year-old Andrew to mix with ordinary beaux of his own age. There just weren't many of them around. So Shopper was dispatched to round up 3 small boys from the Royal Mews to a former Cub Scout pack at Buckingham Palace. When it became obvious from their boredom that their numbers were insufficient, an outside interest to limit the first Marylebone pack, whose members approvingly met in Bramson Square, were obliged to merge with them. The boys of first Marylebone was lost. How many have ever read one of these books? Hmm? Interesting. That should help you learn some English, yeah? The universal language, huh? For once in your life. A royal family member. The royal show can have all of the fun. You women thought you had me all figured out. That's what your brother would be telling me. Followed by, before you even come near him, he already knows you're there. To merge within the boards of First Marylebone were bus to Buckingham Palace for regular meetings in the cars and fine weather in the private cinema. When it rained like the other parents, the Queen and Prince Philip had to provide their son with a uniform costing £3, and from his own pocket money, Andrew paid a small weekly subscription. 3 years later, Scout Grip was conveniently formed at head throne. Heather down with His Royal Highness among his first members. He wore the regulation uniform of a mushroom-colored trousers, a bottle of green shirt, and green beret. From Heather down, he was dispatched in his footsteps of his elders. Brother, somewhat Spartan, Scottish public, Gordonson by no co-education reputation, returning out well-balanced pupils along not necessarily brilliant ones. Again, not the most popular pupils, other boys, nevertheless reversed the situation with female pupils. Despite earning a reputation as a senior, because of his never-ending repertoire of blue jokes, Andrew did quite well scholastically, and by the end of 1977, passed the last of his 6 O-level examination, prompting his headmaster to declare our philosophy is to give a broad education. But we don't overemphasize the academic at the expense of other activities. Prince Andrew, for instance, enjoys all sports. God bless you. Earlier that year, the school's most celebrated pupil had joined an exchange scheme which took him to Lakewood, an exclusive college in Ontario. Lunchtime already. Having traveled there, here in Elizabethtown, carrying on. There's Andrew Cumbridge. As I said, it'd be impossible to beat my stay away record. Years at Expo. Canada down the Polar River, ice skating, earned from the Canadian media the text 6 feet of raw sex appeal. It was Canada, the 1976 Olympics, that Andrew was first romantically smitten. Also 16 this time was Sandy Jones, his official hostess at the sailing side. Her father, Colonel Campbell Jones, was Director General of the Olympics yachting events. Whether she was teaching him to dance the bone, or they were off the dance floor drinking fruit cup and eating donuts, Andrew kept an arm firmly around her waist, and the Canadian nation was convinced what it was the last going to have her represented in the royal family, alas. Their romance did not blossom after the pair dated several times after right up the visit he made to Florida in 1980. Sandy said that the prince was just like any teenager on the block. He is a real character who always likes to make people laugh. He loves girls, likes jazz, Elton John, the Eagles, and all the Newton John. Guess he really is attracted to women. He really liked to be where there were women. I think because they didn't give him a rough time. When he was at a time of not when he was at the home of people acting as his guardian in Canada, he tended to go into the room where the ladies were, while I went into the room with the men, whether they were grandmothers or little girls. I was gravitated toward the ladies, and it was utterly charming to them. He knew they weren't trying to analyze or compete with him, but he always had problems with boys. Because he felt they were rivals, they refused to accept him for what he was. In her heart, Sandy knew that she had lost her prince when she traveled to Britain in 1978 with her school choir and was invited to the palace by Andrew, who proceeded to introduce her to his latest girlfriend. The girls loved Prince Andrew, and his reciprocation of feeling soon earned him the nickname Randy Andy, one of the Gordonston girls he took home to Windsor Castle, was Cleo Nathalie. She gave away gracefully to Julia Guinness as the daughter of the prominent brewer, who later regaled her fellow pupils with a tale of how her tireless royal date almost got her barred from Annabel's. Ever anxious to impress the girls, when he promised to take the Julia to dance at Annabel's, he was reminded at the door that even his father obeyed the Mayfair Club rule to wear a tie. Despite his close attention to the girl, Andrew left Gordonston in 1979 as a credible subject in English history, economics, political science sufficient to win an Oxford or Cambridge place if he desired. He also had demonstrated some qualities of leadership as head of his house, coming in his service. The air training course he had learned to fly a plane and won his parachute wings. But Andrew was best remembered at the school for his prowess in sport. He played cricket for the first, rugby, tennis, and squash, and also learned to pilot a glider within days of leaving the school in a capacity as the deputy heir to the throne. He joined his parents. On his first major foreign tour, they traveled to Tanzania, Malawi, Botswana, and Zambia before he returned to start his Royal Navy career at Dartmouth, where he had been accepted for officers' training as 24 pounds a midshipman. His taste for beauty queens became apparent when in 1979 pursued a girl whom died Lewin, not to mention Wimbledon favorite Isle Nastasia and Arab Prince, had also admired the former Miss United Kingdom. God bless you all over there. Caroline talked to Fruity to newspaper about the dates, and Andrew let it be known that he dropped her for just that reason. She was most notably followed by model Jim Curry in 1980 and her cousin Kim Diaz, another model the following year. But it was the arrival of Clu Stark in 1901 that marked a watershed in Andrew's love. She was amongst that small band of women to whom Andrew designated a code name when the Buckingham Palace switchboard operator or any other servant requested her name. Clu was told to say Fiona Campbell. Palace staff became used to seeing Miss Campbells around the workplace. When they moved up to Baltimore for Royal Family Holiday at the end of the summer 1918, no one was surprised to see the attractive Fiona in attendance. Although her appearance at the Queen's diner table in gold rah-rah skirt, as one occasion did raise a few eyebrows. One in Her Majesty's service commented, "We never minded having Coo around. She had no airs and grace and seemed more like one of us than one of them. More importantly, HRH was always most even-tempered. When she was around, her presence seemed to put an end to his tantrums. Andrew's shipmates might have prepared, therefore she had been with him. When she was at sea, one of them recalled that he could be like a bear in a saw, and when things weren't going his way, pressed on what might exaggerate his irascible condition. The sailor added he was particularly unpleasant with any member of the crew who had overindulged during his shore leave. He had never missed an opportunity to remind people that he did not drink and would not tolerate bad behavior for those who did. He was particularly intolerant of drunks. It was Prince Philip who finally succeeded in convincing Andrew that his romance with Miss Stark was going nowhere, although he kept in touch with her by telephone. Considering time thereafter, Andrew said that they had to abandon all hope of settling down with his very nice girlfriend, and he embarked on serious adventures with women who, if no more suitable than Coo, were certainly less likely to leave any permanent ill. Scar. One of them was a former Model 13 U.S. senior, Vicky Hodge. He conducted an 8-day affair with her when HMS Invincible made a stopover in Barbados in March 1988. Baronet daughters Vicky and two young friends, Lucy Wisdom and Tracy Lamb, were holidaying on the island, where they were invited to a party in the wardroom aboard Invincible. Clearly proud of her royal encounter, Vicky later revealed every detail of it, including his admission that could have been his first lover, that he was definitely in love with her and that the queen had really liked her. During a moonlit moment among the scented flowers, Vicky said he revealed her to that fantasy was to dress up for a practical part, kiss a beautiful girl, and then turn into a prince. When the girl was finally to replace the truly glamorous Miss Stark, in his affection to her eyes, his raw eyes, he neither the time nor the inclination of dress up as a frog. I'm going to stop there. Need a very tall, take a nap. And then carry on the day like everybody else in the night, like everybody all over the world. Being that half the planet is day and the other is night. God bless you all my Bradley, and everybody else. There's another element to Bradley's complaint about Patton that goes deeper to Bradley's character. What Bradley objects to above all is injustice, and in Africa especially, he was put off by Patton's several penalties for relatively minor infractions. Bradley was no slouch on his discipline. He objected to loosening of the rules at West Point. Still, his sense of justice was different from Patton's, considerably more practical and steady. It was necessary by the book, neither constant Frenchman and intelligent officer with top army groups found herself any difficult situation during the September 1944 drive toward Germany, possessing intelligence that Patton's Third Army flank was threatening by an intimate panzer attack. The young officer had no way to warn them except over an open radio line, forbidden by regulations and rules unless approved by a senior officer. His colonel could conceivably have okayed the message. Fitzgibbon, deciding the situation was dire, sent the message. Patton was able to beat off the attack. 3 weeks later, Patton sent a message to headquarters demanding that Fitzgibbon be court-martialed. Bradley, after hearing Fitzgibbon's side, frowned. Look, someone's got to answer this thing, he told Fitzgibbon. I'm a very busy man, drafty reply for my signature, will you? There appear to have been no flare-ups between the volatile Patton and the stuckily laconic Bradley. Bradley disliked Patton's faults, most especially those he had interpreted as emotional and impulsive. He believed that Patton's style worked often inadequate, handicapping use of his force and battle. But he also believed Patton to be an effective commander, and he recognized purpose behind Patton's methods and believed that in the main they worked for Patton at least. God bless you, Lord, to the veteran. All right. Carrying on, especially to all you in Japan. God bless you. All your Bruce Lee martial artists, everybody else, Ming Dynasty, other dynasty families, emperor, ambassadors, prime ministers all over the world. God bless you right here at home, here in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. If you do come visit, rest assured I will be here sooner or later. You're most likely to catch me in the evenings. God bless you all. Those who remain to be unseen by the public eye, I understand this. Do drop by whenever you can. As long as I'm here, you will always be safe, especially in the eyes of God. All races, all cultures are welcome here. Much love right here in Elizabethtown. Oh, and if you want to write, you can write me at 328 Helm Street, Elizabethtown, Kentucky, here at my home. After all, I'm the head honcho of this place, nobody else. God bless. And by the way, being a big old bachelor tab, do keep praying for others as they do for you. God bless you all, especially those in China, Korea, England, Italy, Scotland. You Celtic ladies, God bless you, darling damsels I've been praying for. Shania Twain soon be coming to Kentucky, if not here already. Not to mention Sarah McLaughlin and everybody else I care about living here. And by the way, God bless you again, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, and everybody else I listen to. ESPN Radio, Star Trek, Next Generation, all kinds of books I read, Star Wars, you name it. Yeah, kid at heart. God bless y'all. Keeping libraries going all over the world. Art museums, Smithsonian, symphonies, classical music, even Tchaikovsky, Beethoven. Being into violin, piano, all kinds of music. Like I said, you ladies thought you had me all figured out. Oh, maybe I should be quiet, huh? Just sit there in the passenger side and stare at you. Just trying to figure me out. God bless y'all. Stay warm. Watch out. Much love. Legitimate, my little darlings. Here's looking at you, kid. God bless you.